but I know that this particular episode is going to be very valuable for you. Why? Everybody just heard information about what they're going to be doing as far as the stimulus and all of that wonderful things. So it's kind of like, this is going to be your strategy. We're going to come in, we're going to hit it and quit it, but we're definitely going to have a real conversation about the money talk, something that many of us have never had. So those of you who are coming in live or the replay, listen, this is the Speak Easy podcast, where we go behind the scenes and talking about what it means to be the successfully paid speaker or author. I'm your host, Altvise Pelzer, that part, founder of the World Voice League, a virtual network of female speakers coming together to impact social change. And I have an amazing guest today. Hey, Jen.
Hi. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So I'm super excited. I love how this kind of just worked itself out, that your episode is today and you are the money guru. And so with that being said, let them know a little bit about yourself and then we'll dive into today's topic.
Sure. So my name is Jen Fontanilla. I am a certified money coach, and I focus on helping entrepreneurial women take control of their money so they gain clarity, hope, and confidence to live out their true passion and purpose. So that's what I do, and we can dive in further with all those things.
Great. Now, guys, I know you saw the title of this episode, I'm Gonna Buy a Giraffe. And so I'm going to tell you where it came from. It's two parts. One, it came from a comedy special that Kevin Hart did, in talking about how he had enough money, he could do whatever he wanted to. He was going to go buy a giraffe. And in all actuality, that's how a lot of us think. Because the second part is we just got information about them okaying this like $2 trillion stimulus package. And so the majority of Americans are going to be getting a stimulus check. And so I said, well, we're going to get a percentage, a certain amount because you have kids and all this other stuff. So I told my kids, I said, well, I'll go ahead and just give you part of the money and let you go do something with it. And the first thing out of my youngest daughter's mouth is, I'm going to buy a leotard. Wait, she's not in dance. So I said, wow. And then it made me think, what did I do with my last stimulus? And I said, And so Jen and I actually had a brief conversation about it as well, because I really don't remember what I did with the last stimulus, but I blew it. I know I did. Is it? Oh, there we go. I'm like, I blew it. I know I blew it. I know I did. But man, now's a great time for us to be in position to do something amazing with it. So with that being said, Jen, when someone is getting an unexpected amount of money, what should be the first thing that kind of plays out in building up this strategy?
Oh my goodness. The first thing that came into my mind was the lottery syndrome, when people just get this huge amount. Look at you, you're like, yeah. When people get this huge amount of money, it even is the same case when somebody gets a death benefit from an insurance policy. And I think the most important thing, this is the biggest message I've been telling people over the last several days, the last couple of weeks, you need to take a deep breath. You need to slow down and you need to stay calm. You also need to, it's really about managing your emotions right now. And I know that with everything happening, people are panicking. People are making decisions out of fear. We can even talk about the market and things like that, because people are obviously fearful of what's happening with their portfolios and the market and what do I do? And it's just crazy town right now. I get it. But I think the first thing you need to do is slow down and just absorb it, in terms of like, it's great. And I know it's natural for us to want to like dream, I'm going to go buy this, I want to buy this, but you really need to just slow down. I think you just take a few days. Don't just like already start having these ideas of what you want to buy that have nothing to do with surviving. that have nothing to do with your essentials or nothing to do with your priorities. So first thing I would say is slow down. And then you need to start thinking about, and this is what you can do now, even while you don't have the money here yet. I think it's really important for you to analyze your current situation right now, where you need to see, where is the money going right now? Are there things what are you spending the money on? Because some of us don't have jobs anymore. Some of us have been fortunate to be able to work from home and just transfer to go virtual, right? But then some people, especially if you are in the service industry, if you worked at a restaurant, if you were in the beauty industry, some of you are freaking out right now because like, I don't have money coming in. And so you really need to take a look at, what do you have left? What are the reserves that are left? How are you going to be able to start making income and shift and adjust to what the new environment is for you, and especially in the industry that you're in? And then you need to take a look at the expenses that you have, because I guarantee you, some of you might even be wasting money on maybe subscriptions or memberships that you're not even using. If you do have a membership, let's say like at a gym, obviously those are closed. You need to find out. I know for some of the ones that I know here in my state, I'm in California, they sent out a letter that said, we're going to credit you, for those months that it's been closed. So you need to check on those things. But if it's something you're not using, stop. You gotta have to stop the bleeding. So right there, you need to first assess, before this check even comes in, assess your current situation, what money is still around, what do you have coming in, what can you look forward to bringing in, and what money is going out and what money is being wasted that you really could be diverting those funds to other things like food, toilet paper, just kidding. And, but the essentials, the things that you really need, because some people are, they're especially worried about like my mortgage, my rent, my car payment. So you really need to start taking a step back and looking at what's priority.
That's valuable. So it's interesting you said that, because in the beginning of the year, something I do for my clients, and shout out to hashtag WVL, World Voice League community, we literally go through a purge. And so we're in like the best position right now, because we're like, oh, we went through and purged out things that we didn't need back in January. And so, we're not putting out as much money. So I definitely agree with you there. And then I even have to add, don't allow this to be the time where FOMO is like knocking you upside the head. Yeah. That part.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. FOMO can be a real, killer of a lot of things, because it makes you make decisions that, they're not helping you. They're hindering you. And it's just like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's a whole other episode, girl.
Right? That's a whole other one. So when we go back to this money talk, I know that you deal with a lot of couples as well. And let's be honest, right now we're in an enclosed space because we're social distancing and a lot of businesses are closed. So is this a good time to have a money talk?
I think so. In fact, I'm so glad you're bringing this up. It's a perfect time, because what other time are you going to have it? Especially when you're in these closed quarters. Think about it. There's a lot of stuff you see online where people are saying like, wow, spend time with family. Especially if you're in the same household, or, oh, read a good book. And I get it. There's some people that were able to continue their work situation and their routine. And then some of us had to like all of a sudden learn how to become teachers because of the homeschooling. But then there are also those opportunities where now you're at home and you have your partner, your spouse, or whoever it is, and you probably never had that money talk. You think about it, when this is lifted and when we are able to go back into the outside world, you're going to go back to your routines. You're going to have to acclimate, and nobody knows what's going to happen. We don't even know when this is going to end. So what you can control is what you do right here, right now, today. So while you have the time, while you have the opportunity to be in close quarters, this is a great time for you to assess the situation, especially if you are married and you are getting the checks, and even if you're, cohabitating, whatever your situation, this is a great time to like, okay, this money's coming in, and have that conversation. Because if you don't, when are you going to have it? You're going to go back to your busy lives. You're going to be like, it's going to be one of those things like, oh yeah, we were supposed to, and we never got to it. And if you don't do it now, really, in all honesty, it's going to go back to busyness. It's going to go back to, let's say we go back to, people go back to their jobs. When are you going to do it? And so this is such a great time to have that conversation about, okay, where are we at? I mean, because I wrote the book, Do Before I Do. And when I was doing some statistics and studies about what's in the climate of how couples talk about money, it was such an amazing percentage of how many people don't even know what their partner makes. And I thought, like, how are you planning anything if you don't even know what your partner makes? And this has nothing to do with, we have separate checking accounts. No, because if you are planning to live together or planning a life and a future together, how can you, I mean, I used to be a financial advisor. I mean, I can't even plan somebody's future if I don't have all the information. So how are you guys going to plan anything if you don't even know what money's coming in and going out? It just doesn't make any sense. So the thing is, I feel people are kind of just haphazardly, we're just kind of eking by. We're just doing what we can. We're just going to pay this and this, but that is not how you do it. You need to be strategic. Look at the climate that we're in. Don't you think that if we had planned a little bit better and taken it a little more seriously, we would not be in certain situations with the hospital, with the supplies, with the way that we could have handled the situation. And so that's just, proof positive to come to show that if we don't do something now, I'm a big advocate of being proactive versus reactive. You don't want to take care of your situation when you're in the middle of it. Let's say, for example, a death. If you didn't have the life insurance in place, if you didn't have disability in place, if you didn't have these things in place, you can't try to get it, and you don't want to deal with it when you're in the middle of it. You need to be ready so you don't have to get ready.
That's interesting. I absolutely love it. And it makes me think about how, man, all right, I'm going to say a naughty word. I'm going to say the B word.
Say it.
We have not learned how to budget.
Yeah, that is the B word. Really bad B word. Yes.
It's the really bad B word. And we, even coming into a relationship, if you're not budgeting, like I think about weddings. If you're not budgeting for a wedding, then you spend all of this money on a wedding, and then when you get back from the honeymoon, can't pay your bills.
Oh yeah. Or you're in debt for the next 5 years trying to pay it off.
Exactly.
And then you can't buy that house because you wanted a big party that you didn't budget for. That's another episode.
Yeah, right? But it also makes me think, because right now we're in quarantine, and what's going to happen in 9 to 10 months?
Yeah. Yes.
We're going to see a baby boom like no other.
Oh yeah. They're going to call them coronials.
Right? Somebody said when they're teenagers, they'll be called quarantines. I said, y'all are horrible.
I know. You know what though? I appreciate the jokes because I get it. It's not that people are insensitive. You have to understand it. I think it's a coping thing. We have to still live life and be aware and be sensitive. But at the same time, you know what? We're all in this together, and we're all going stir crazy and bat crazy and cabin fever. So let people laugh. Okay.
Exactly.
Let them have fun.
This stimulus, some of you will need it in about 9 to 10 months.
Yeah, you better hang on to it.
You might want to hang on to it because you're going to need it in about 9 to 10 months. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Might be a good idea.
That is so true. What a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
So now
toilet paper and diapers. Yeah.
Right. When it comes to being in that world of finance, what brought you to it? Because I know, okay, I learned a little bit about, and even in high school, I'm like, okay, I'm dating myself a little bit. We learned how to write out a check and do a checkbook. Teenagers now don't have checkbooks.
What's that?
But so that made me want to teach them more things. But what brought you to wanting to help other people in this area?
Yeah. So I've been in this field, in the financial field, for over 15 years. So over a decade, I was a financial advisor. And in the more recent years, I transitioned into the financial money coaching. And so before that, though, I was a graphic designer. totally like other side of my brain. And when I was doing that, I was making great income. It was very lucrative. And I sat there at my desk and I thought, man, I'm college educated. I consider myself intelligent. And then I sat there thinking like, I don't even know what I'm doing with this money. I was making really great money and I had no idea. I knew how to save. Like that was pretty obvious. Well, okay, I have a checking account, a savings account, a credit union account, and I just, put it there. But I said to myself, I know this just can't be it. And it frustrated me. And I realized, if I don't learn, this is something I didn't learn in school. Like you said, you only learn how to do the checkbook and whatnot. I just knew it was just bugging me. I said, there's so much more to this, because you started hearing these words like investing and, stocks, and you hear these words and you're just like, oh, well, I didn't learn any of that. And it really bothered me. So 15 years ago, I decided to go into the field and get the licenses and whatnot. So I just knew that if I felt that way, that so many other people felt that way. If you didn't learn it in school, and even when I talk to people that are finance majors, there's a whole big difference. And this, it's like there's theory, then there's practical life, real use of the information. And even they were saying like, I didn't learn some of the stuff that we were tested on the exams we took. Like it wasn't something I learned in college. So there's this big disconnect. So for me, it was this mission to, if I was feeling this way, I know there's other people who feel lost. And I just hated that feeling. And so I also like the challenge that this was an area that people don't like to talk about. Some people feel that this subject is taboo. Some people don't want to touch it because they feel like it's just confusing. There's so many terms, and I agree it can be. So one of my biggest goals was to explain this and make something that seems complex and complicated and break it down so simply so that it doesn't have to be confusing and you don't have to feel lost, and that you can make changes and do really good and create a great financial future. So that was why I got into it and how I got into it.
That's true. I know it was years ago, and I was making a statement. And I said, I never knew how much my mother made. It wasn't a discussion that we ever had. It wasn't, I knew she paid bills some way, somehow.
Yeah, it just magically happened.
It just kind of magically like, ooh, we have electric.
Yes, right?
And I just, you never knew how much your parents made. You never knew how much it cost for them to pay for you to get an education. And like little things like that were never a discussion, because growing up at that time, it was children are to be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
So yes. When thinking about finance, and I know like the basic things, like when we think about saving and spending, and we can teach them pretty early now, can't we?
Oh, yes. I agree. I think we're in a really great place in time where, even something as simple as going to YouTube, finding age appropriate lessons. I get that question often. And I love that you're bringing this up, because it's very, very true. Those statements, like you said, children not, they're meant to be seen, not heard. And, other things, we don't talk about money. You don't ask about that stuff. But the problem is, as that kind of information and mentality and mindset has been passed down, it becomes blind leading the blind. And at some point you have to make that decision. Are you going to be the one that stops this in your family? Are you going to be the one that decides, I'm going to teach my kids, I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to start showing my kids? And why did that even become the norm? Why not say, hey, I'm not going to stay in this mindset. I'm going to show my kids. It can be as simple as this. This is one tip that I gave another parent one time. I said, get into the habit of using cash if you have your child with you. So when my son, he's going to be 9, but when he was little, he's still little, but when he was 3 and we go to like say Target, right? I would use cash and not my debit card, because, for example, if he's in the shopping cart, your child, you don't realize every action, everything you do and say, they pick up on it. Parents, this. But when they get to the shopping, they're in the shopping cart and they get to the cashier and they see you swiping, they think that's a magic card. Mommy, daddy has this magic card that when I swipe this thing, we just push the card out. I can put stuff in the cart and we just get to take it home. They don't see this exchange of physical cash being handed and explaining like, okay, so I'll tell them like that thing, or first I would even have this conversation. Okay, we're going in here, we're buying what we need. This is what we need. If you see anything, you can look at it, but it's not on the list. We're not here for that. So he learned early on, don't be like asking me for toys because we're not here for that. So he learned that really quick. So by the time we got to the register, I would tell him, okay, I want you to hand, how much does the thing say on the screen? He's like, $8.99 or whatever. I said, okay, give this. How much is this? $10. Let them see you give that exchange so they understand that money buys that stuff. We get this change back. Find little lessons that you can teach them, very, very simple. And of course, increase those lessons in complexity as they get older, but start as simply as there where they see that exchange, because I'm telling you, they're going to think it's some magic thing that happens where you just swipe the card and then they go off, because, and this is the most interesting thing. I had to explain to him one time, we were at an ATM the drive-through thing. And cause he wanted to, how on Apple, you can put you can purchase games on the iPad, right? So I remember it was so funny. It was like 2 years ago. And he's like, can I get this game? I said, okay, we need to put money into the account. And then he's like, okay, well, here's $1. He wanted me to put the $1 in the iPad. And I said, okay, it doesn't really work like that. And it was so strange, because think about it. How do you explain to a child that, okay, there is a card connected to the account and the account is connected to the bank account, right? And then it's wired and then it's routed. it was like, yeah, it was the most complex thing. I had to really break down in my mind, but I'm saying find ways to slowly integrate them into the conversation when you're doing things. Because like you said, I know even for myself growing up, I mean, eventually I found out how much my parents meant I handled their accounts. But, when I was younger, it wasn't something like, okay, this is how much we make. And some parents, I get it. You might have this feeling like, well, they shouldn't know. But if you don't teach them, if you don't show them how to run a household, how to pay for bills, how are they going to learn? You don't want them to have to go through trial and error. You want to be able to set them up for success. So you need to be able to teach them this and have these conversations, like even especially they're little, look, the light and that comes from electricity we pay for, water because we pay for utilities, that everything has a cost to it. That way you don't have these kids that just think everything's entitlement. It just magically happens. I don't know how, we get the food. It just appears in the refrigerator. You need to show them where it comes from. Even just explain to, why do you go to work? I had to teach my son that, okay, why am I at the computer all the time? Because I'm working. Because if we don't do this, what happens? We don't have money. I'm like, exactly. So find ways to have these conversations and show them, obviously when they get older, start showing them how to budget. I did a video on how I use the video game that he was playing. My son was playing on how to learn math, that he had to have a certain amount of dollars saved up to purchase a certain amount of points. These points purchase these virtual things. That's a whole different thing. And then how to subtract that and budget, because I said, you're only getting this once a month. So if you use it all up now, that's it. If you want to get that sword or that shield or whatever it was in the game, I said, you need to wait or save up till the next month. So he's starting to learn the idea of budgeting through the video game. So, find ways to be creative and teach your kids these lessons. But absolutely, with your partner, have the money conversation. With your kids, you need to have those talks, because if we don't, you obviously know that it's not being taught in school. So where else are they going to get this information?
That part. I look at my kids and I'm like, they're teenagers, they're about to go off to college. We had to talk about, I would prefer you not have to take out loans. So what does that mean? What does that look like? I am so about y'all taking out credit cards. Mm-hmm. What would that mean? What would that look like? And I mean, even so much when we think about credit cards, college campus, that, hey, you want free pizza? You want a t-shirt? Right.
Oh, I remember those days. Yeah. Thankfully, they changed those credit cards being on campus. So that act
most definitely. Yeah. I'm like, that was our first reality check with a credit card was, hey, you want some free pizza? It sounds really weird saying it.
Yeah, did you ever see the friends, if you got to the point where hey, I got a new t-shirt, I got a football, I got a water bottle, and you look back like, that was really dumb. But we all wanted the free t-shirt.
Exactly. Like, what were we thinking? What?
We weren't.
What was going on? Oh my goodness. So there's a question that I ask every guest that comes on, and it's, in this journey that you've been on when it comes to finances, have there been any blunders for you? Any times where you can look back and go, yep, that wasn't the great choice?
You know, for myself?
Yeah.
In my own situation? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
we don't even have enough time. You know, I would say, I wrote about this in my book, so it's public knowledge. But I talked about when I was married, or before I got married, I was going to buy a house. So we were obviously planning, like, hey, let's be co-signed. We weren't married yet, but we kind of had an idea we were going in that direction. So I felt safe. But anyways, it wasn't until we were trying to get the pre-approval, qualify for the loan, so now we're looking at, okay, can we even qualify for the money? At that point, mind you, we already found the place. We already found like the property. And so now I'm going through the pre-approval process. And it was at that point I found out he had like the crappiest credit. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm thinking in my head, great, we can lose this house. Great, we're going to have to start all over. And so I look back and I think this was why it was so important for me to talk about having these conversations, because if you're not proactive, you don't have these conversations, and you don't find out all this pertinent information up front, let me tell you guys, that was not the time to be finding out we were not going to get the loan. Okay? That was not the time to be finding out, oh, you have bad credit. I mean, luckily what ended up happening, this was several years ago, my parents ended up co-signing it. So I did get the property. So it belonged to me and my parents at the time. But, that was not the time to do it. And that's why I said, have to be proactive. So when I think about blunders, I mean, I've made so many, which is why I can talk extensively on this subject, because I was a product of it myself. It's just, you don't want to find out those types of things when it's too late. So be proactive in finding out, there's another question. Well, when do you bring it up in a relationship? Well, it's like, look, if you're married, I mean, my goodness, that should have happened a long time ago, that conversation. And if you're definitely in a serious relationship, you really should be bringing this up, credit history. Are there bankruptcies? Are there any things like the skeletons in the closet? Look, you have to bring it up. I know that sounds scary and really weird, but you have to, because it really impacts so many things. I mean, you even need to find out, does your partner have tax liens? Do you owe like extensive tax liens, or do you have any on your record? Because when you try to apply for anything, I mean, everybody wants to, most people want to have this dream of buying a house or some big ticket purchase, right? But they're going to run your credit. That's not the time you want to, hey babe, guess what? I had to tell you something, right? It's just not the time to be doing that. So be honest. It's like, the crazy thing is, it's like, when I was doing research on this, check this out. People were more open to talking about past lovers and past relationships than revealing financial blunders. And I thought, right? I'm like, you rather talk about your exes than talk about like, I have a 435 credit score. It's like, wow. It was amazing to see that. So my advice is this is why it's so important, because when you're in the middle of trying to get that home or a car or whatever it is, apply for a loan, that is not the time. You need that time to know what there is to fix. It's not going to be like 2 weeks and it's going to be all fixed. So you need to give yourself that time to fix things and find out what you need to do so that you are properly positioned to be able to move forward with the transaction. But you trying to find out at the last minute, it's like those people that are about to get married. You see this on like TMZ and crazy things where like they're about to get married, and then it's like, that person's like, is there everybody here? And they ask if there's somebody, and then that's like that person goes like, yes, I've been cheating with him since. It's like, that's not the time to be finding that out.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. So same thing with your money. I mean, you don't want to be finding out those things at that moment when you're trying to get approved. It's just those types of things. Those are the biggest blunders, I think, where people are not being proactive, having these conversations, having these real serious talk. I mean, this is about your money. This is about your future. And if you don't, you're going to be dealing with it at that very moment. And then you're going to be putting yourself back in a position where you're angry, you're either fearful, you're worried because you might not get it anymore. And anytime you allow yourself to go into that space, you tend to make poor financial decisions because now it becomes emotional and you start losing the logic. So that's why I would say, like, you have to, I'm like, I urge you to just be proactive.
That's interesting because, of course, slight disclaimer. I mean, slight, we're going to go into it a little bit, but Love is Blind. There was a conversation and about finances because one of the women on there said, yeah, I have such and such amount of makeup debt and student loan debt.
I've never heard of makeup debt. Okay, that's a new one.
And I was like, and his response was, you have makeup debt. How much makeup do you buy?
Wow.
But it was great that they were having the discussion, and it brought light to the fact that many people don't have that discussion. We don't have, about buying a home or buying a car or taking care of that debt, because at the time she said she wasn't even taking care of the debt. So his face said it all.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. That's such a great point, because I think when you say love is blind, a lot of times when we're in a relationship, we're thinking about, oh, we get along so well. We finish each other's sentences. It's just so perfect. Everybody gets so focused on being emotionally compatible, but you don't ever take I shouldn't say ever, but most of the time, a lot of times, people aren't looking to see, are we financially compatible? Are you with a saver? Are you a spender? Are you both spenders? Are you both savers? There's so many things that I talked about in my book about, have you even asked each other about how you feel about lending money to friends and family? Have you ever had the conversation about who's going to take care of the bills for your kids that you had from a previous relationship? I mean, it's all kinds of stuff that has to do with money that sometimes we're afraid to go into, but we have to, because you can't plan. You got to be on the same page, not just emotionally, but also financially.
I love it. Oh my goodness, this conversation is, I absolutely love it. But Jen, let them know where they can find you online. And also how they can get a copy of the book.
Oh, yes. Okay, so you can easily find me on Facebook or Instagram. It's the same handle, at Jen Money Coach. That's Jen with one N. And then you can go to, actually I have the cover here, hold on. So hope it's not backwards. Is it backwards? Okay, so it's Do Before I Do. Just go to dobeforeido.com. And that's where you can get a copy of the book. So, but yeah, connect with me if you have questions. So yeah, this has been so fun and great. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. And guys, right now, this is, and I'm going to ask one more question before we leave out. Like, this is going to be that power nugget for them. But I think, having the money discussion is definitely something that needs to happen more often. We have the stimulus coming. This can potentially be a shift for so many people who may have lost a job, who may not be working right now. Even though it can take care of some necessities, it can also be the spark that you needed to invest in your business or you go back to school. Like, there's so many different, aspects to it. With that being said, Jen, what is your top 2 things that you think people should do with the stimulus?
Oh gosh. So I already told you in the beginning about the staying calm and then really assessing your current situation. I think that the biggest things in terms of what to do with the money, aside from figuring out what your future expenses are, like the things that need to be immediately taken care of, I'm a huge advocate of life insurance. I think there are so many people who do not take care of that. And it actually got me thinking about how many people that have been affected by COVID-19 that weren't insured. I mean, this was something that just hit us that we weren't expecting. And I thought about, my gosh, how many people were not insured? how much other extra financial burden was placed on the family members who are left behind and what's happening now. So I think it's so important. If you are not insured, I strongly urge you into looking into that. And then I also think the second thing that's also important is setting aside emergency fund. You hear about that all the time. You hear about, oh, rainy day fund. I just posted that on Instagram, rainy day. And I was writing and I'm thinking, how fortunate or unfortunate is it that some people were not properly prepared? You heard about rainy day fund. You've heard about emergency fund. And here we are. It just came bam, like out of nowhere. And now some people don't have that emergency fund. So I urge you to look into the insurance, and I urge you to look into setting that money aside, because you don't know. We don't even know today. If this thing lasts longer and you start to run out of that stimulus package, be very, very mindful and careful with what you're doing with that reserve. So set aside some, start that emergency fund. Like, because you know what? If things go back to normal, still treat it like you needed that reserve. You need to really build that up, because you just never know. It may not be another virus. It could be another something else, but who knows? But you still, at the end of the day, you need to set that money aside for that rainy day emergency fund. So I would say those top two, really, really look into that if that's something that's not established, or if you really need to replenish the emergency fund that you had to dip into recently.
Oh, that was really, really powerful, because when I think about the insurance piece, what we're getting back from the stimulus can actually pay for your full year of insurance, depending on how much your insurance is. Exactly. And then as far as the rainy day fund or emergency fund, I think at one point, I think we're supposed to have at least 3 months.
Yeah, 3 to 6. They say 3 to 6. I mean, if you really want to be extra, a year. But you have to take a look. Everybody's situation is different, and what's affordable in terms of like, okay, I can only save so much and still be able to pay for everything. But at the bare minimum, 3 months. Yeah,
that's valuable. So guys, that was your strategy. I need y'all to write that down. If you didn't write it down, I need you to go and find Jen, and I need you to let her know that you're going to cyber stalk her. So that way you can make the right choices when it comes to your finances.
Tell me what you're going to do. Tell me your first big step, the number one step you're going to focus on, and drop it in the comments.
There it is. So I'm super excited, guys. Again, I really felt like we needed to bring this conversation live and talk to you guys about it. You guys have been rocking and rolling in the comments. I see you. They said this time frame, Maria said it, this time frame reveals everyone's colors and belief systems, which is very true.
Very true, Maria.
And Maria's in, I want to say Maria's in, not Australia.
Ooh, wow.
She's not here in the U.S. She's tuned in, and I know Fraser tuned in from Scotland. So thank you to all of our international
Thanks for joining us from abroad.
We appreciate you guys. So thank you once again from the Speakeasy podcast, where we go behind the scenes, talking about what it means to be the successfully paid speaker or author, with your host, Altavis Pelzer, your voice manager. And until next time, guys, don't forget to press it out. See ya.